Greetings and welcome to the Epically Geeky Show, episode number 128. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight is our kind of annual, not really annual, but our what was becoming a tradition of reviewing the newest Star Wars movie out. This year is episode 9, the quote-unquote final movie in the Skywalker saga, and it's probably our last Star Wars review movie-wise for quite a while, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a bit. Joining me tonight is Jennifer, Sean, and Brian. What's going on?
Just trying to survive the holidays, man.
Sometimes that's all you can do is just try to survive, so... we always watch Christmas Vacation a couple of times, and I always try to keep that in perspective. I'm like, it could be worse. I could be Clark Griswold. Although to this day I still don't understand why they are scared of a squirrel, but whatever. That's for another podcast. But tonight we're discussing, like I said, the newest Star Wars movie that just came out, The Rise of Skywalker. Just going around real quick, what was your general impression? I'll just looking at my screen. I'll start with Brian. Or Rudy? Which do you prefer me to call you? I always call you Rudy, but everyone else calls you Brian.
Rudy's fine.
All right, because it sounds weird. Anyway, Rudy, what was your just general impression of the movie?
I thought it wrapped up the saga well. There's so many things to touch on, but I thought wrapped up the saga well. Definitely entertaining. Having a hard time placing it in my ranking system.
I am not even going to ask that question.
So hard, but what I can say is this: it is far from the least favorite. It is much closer to a favorite side. You know, gotcha. It's just there's 9. I mean, there's 9. It's hard to put in order. So anyhow.
Well, yeah, I mean, technically there's 11 if you're going to count Solo and Rogue One. So.
Well, I actually count those, and I count the Clone Wars as well as Rebels. So that's why I struggle. So.
Oh yeah, then it would definitely be hard to place all that. So, Jen, general impression.
I liked it. I went into this new trilogy kind of skeptical, as you may recall, and a bit apprehensive because of, the basically killing of my childhood of the expanded universe and all that. So, I mean, I liked episode 7, so I was warming up to this series, and I liked the way they wrapped this up because obviously 7 and 8 left us with a lot of questions, and I feel like we got a lot of answers in this one. So I was satisfied with that. A lot of people didn't like that because they felt like it was too pandering to the fans, but I'm one of those fans that wanted to be pandered to, damn it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And I don't even try to rank them. I just take the whole series as a, collective, and don't ask me to rank any of them. So,
Sean, general impression.
I enjoyed it. It did wrap up a lot of stuff. Being a fan, I like my questions answered, so it was nice to have that. But I'm waiting for the director's cut because there was a couple things that they just left hanging, and I know that he must have done some more scenes, but just left it on the floor, and that bothered me because I knew it was the end of the series. So to me, you got to wrap everything up. You don't bring up new questions or anything like that. You just finish it.
Gotcha. No, I definitely could. I could definitely see there being more stuff out there that we, like you said, that was left on the floor. There always is. There's always, every movie has stuff cut from it. It's the question is does it add to or take away from the movie? Me personally, most of the time when I watch a director's cut of a movie, I tend to like it more because a lot of times it tends to answer questions that aren't there. Superman, what was it? Dawn of Justice. That movie was completely, that director's cut made it a completely different movie, and I'm just like, they should have never released the one they released. Like,
I never watched director's cuts, so
Oh,
the
I
director's
always did.
cut, I still haven't seen it, but from what everyone's told me of that movie in particular, it's like, because I was like, it didn't make any sense what Lex Luthor did, and they're like, no, it did because of this, this, and this. Cy in particular never saw it in the theater. He saw the director's cut, and he starts telling me this stuff, and I was like, none of that was in the theatrical version. Like, that makes so much more sense and actually makes it a decent movie.
Yeah.
Because what we got was like, okay, sure, why not? My general impression of the movie, I'll be honest, I went in kind of guarded, just not because I am one of those people that enjoyed both of the previous movies leading up to this. Everyone, a lot of people have said that The Force Awakens was basically just the original trilogy done again, and I can see that it does bear a lot of similarity to that. And then a lot of people, griped that The Last Jedi was too different, and of course I'm just like, well, so
what do you
don't
want?
want it exactly. You don't want it too much like the original, but you don't want it too different. So I'm like. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people fall in that category now. At least, the really, really vocal fan people online is, they've kind of already got something built up in their head. And if it's not exactly that, then they're not going to like it anyway. But whatever.
But I think a lot of people too said this one was recycled stories. They pulled too much from the EU in this one, or the original trilogy. So I'm just like, guys,
I'd really like to ask some of these people, what is it you want to see in the movie that you will not consider fan service,
right?
But still
satisfying.
Yeah. I mean, it's Star Wars is Star Wars. Like if you don't pull something about Star Wars, then it's not Star Wars. So everything's fan servicey. Get out of here.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I enjoyed the movie. And like I said, we'll kind of talk about how it compares to and kind of, works with the other movies in this trilogy. So
he's drinking out of a Rudy's cup.
Yes, he is.
Rudy has a Rudy's cup.
Yes, he does.
For those at home not watching.
Yes. All right, so let's go ahead and start. Like I said, like I told everyone before the show, if you want to jump ahead on something, that's fine. If you think about something you want to go ahead and jump ahead of, that's fine. I am going to kind of go through the movie kind of in order, just because it helps me keep my thought process going. All right, so we have the opening scroll, and it talks about Emperor Palpatine is basically broadcasting, telling everyone he's back. Now, I was surprised as hell from that, just because, from the trailer, it's kind of, we don't really see Palpatine. We see a little bit of him, and, it's kind of dark and everything else. And I found it really interesting that literally within like the first 10 minutes of the movie, like it was just a straight on shot of Palpatine. It's just like, oh, okay, so he's going to be a big part of this movie. He's not like the build up thing out at the end. So,
the dead speak.
Yeah, it starts off. Now, I didn't realize this. So Kylo Ren is running around looking for, at the start of the movie, he's basically with a bunch of First Order troopers, and they're fighting on this planet, and he's looking for this thing called a Sith Wayfinder to help find this planet that we later find is called Exegol. According to the Wikipedia page, that was Mustafar, which is Vader's planet, which makes sense. That's why there would be one of the Wayfinders there. So, so he finds it. He go on.
If you anybody follow the Aftermath books?
No.
Okay.
I think I read the first one.
Aftermath books. Yeah, in the Aftermath books, it's explained, and of course, my son and I, we shared a moment whenever I found this part out. So the people that Kylo Ren was killing, those were reportedly the Vader worshippers who, after Return of the Jedi, they went and they were collecting his helmet, his saber, and a number of other artifacts. They were worshiping him. There's these people that worship Vader in the galaxy, and that's them. That's the ones he was killing to go get the Wayfinder, which I really wish they would have gone ahead and called it a holocron, like the rest of the Star Wars galaxy calls it. Anyhow, go ahead. That's like one gripe I did have. Anyway,
right. Yeah. So he goes to this planet called Exegol, and it looks like this giant kind of pyramid thing that's just kind of hovering over. and he goes down in it. And I want to say, haven't we visited this planet before in Rebel or in Clone Wars? Because I vaguely remember going someplace where there were giant Sith statues. Maybe it was a different Sith temple or something.
It was a different Sith place where another holocron was found, but very similar design.
Okay,
It was
so
awesome to see in live action.
yes, it was. So Kylo Ren's walking around, and the Emperor starts talking. He's like, I've been waiting for you to come here quite a while. And he's like, Snoke trained you well. He's like, I killed Snoke. He's like, yeah, I made Snoke. So, and then we literally see a jar of Snokes, and I was like, that's kind of cool. So let's talk about that for a second. One of the big problems that some people had with The Last Jedi was they thought the dismissal of Snoke. Everybody was like, I want to know his backstory, and he had to have something happen. He had to have been really awesome or something to get to the power he was in. And it turns out, yeah, he had something really awesome. He was basically a puppet for the Emperor all these years. Which I want to talk a little bit more about that later, as to Palpatine's plans if you look at it over the entire series. But yeah, Palpatine definitely couldn't just come back and said, hey, guess what? I survived the Death Star. Like, everybody would have gotten on their horse and rode up and just, they would have decimated whatever was left. So it makes sense that he had a puppet to start at least that part. At least in my mind, it made sense. But he tells Kylo Ren, hey, listen, I got a deal for you. You go kill the girl, quote unquote, the girl. And I'm going to give you this army of, Star Destroyers that apparently just came out of nowhere. I mean, he's been working on them, but was anyone else kind of like questioning that a little bit? I'm just like,
that bothered me a lot. Like,
that bothered you?
Wanted to build the ships and all that, but where was he getting like the troopers to staff
Yeah.
him? Like, was he starting a new clone facility there too? He must have.
Well, I think Snoke was a clone, and he had been dabbling in cloning and black science for a long time, in addition to the dark side of the Force. So I think that had a lot to do with it.
That makes sense, but they never said it.
Yeah,
true.
It's an unanswered.
Jennifer, you were big into the EU before, or were you?
I was, yeah. It's been so long since I've read it, but
so part of that was borrowed from the EU because later on in the EU there was the invasion of that other, I can't pronounce the name of the creatures that invaded the galaxy later on after Return of the Jedi, but in the
I
EU,
know what you're talking about.
that other species, yeah.
Yes. The Emperor had gone and he had created like several Death Stars out in the Outer Rim, beyond the Outer Rim, whatever, the unknown areas, and he was creating a much bigger empire. That was part of the EU, so I kind of feel like they borrowed a lot of that with, in doing that. Oh, okay, well, let me just go somewhere where nobody knows us, and here we go. Now we have this absolutely enormous new order, last final order. Yeah.
Which, by the way, I love the idea that there's the first order, and then now this is the final order. This is what I've been building to. But you brought up. Oh, go on, sorry, Gene.
I was just gonna say, we read Catalyst for our book club show a few years ago, and to me, one of the things that struck me most about that book focused on the resource acquisition and management side of building the Death Star and all the things that went into everything that the Empire used. And so that was the first time we really saw that addressed, like in every movie, right? It's just plentiful metal and ore and everything. So that was my first thought, was like, where the fuck did they get all these, things to make this equipment in addition to the people? And that makes sense if they went beyond, because if they'd have done it in the known universe, people would have been like, where the fuck is our stuff going?
Yeah.
Well, something that my brother brought up, because I actually had the exact same thing. I was like, not so much the metal and stuff, and I do understand that, where did they get the resources from? But I was like, who is like captaining, or who's actually working in these ships? Were they all just? Yeah. I thought maybe they were all just, because it talks about they need to follow out in a beacon at the end. I thought, well, maybe they're all slave to one, and they just kind of follow, and then they can staff them later. But like my brother brought up, there is that scene in the movie where, and I don't remember his name, but the officer that ends up killing. He's kneeling and he's talking to the Emperor, which means he's had conversations with him. So he may have been working on the staffing of this for quite a while.
Yeah.
So
Still, that's
But
a lot of ships for a
that is
lot.
a lot of damn ships, though. So
All
anyway,
with Death Star capabilities.
Yeah.
yes, and
Yeah.
that's something. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that in a second. That totally made sense to me. I'm sure there were some people who were just, like, but anyway. So anyway, he talks to Palpatine and he's like, okay, sure, I'll take care of it because I want this new army or whatever. But he obviously doesn't trust him because we find that out as soon as he starts talking to everyone else. He's just like, no, that's not the plan. I'm doing what he thinks I'm doing. That's not really what I'm doing. And then the next thing we have is we find Rey training. And I thought it was, I love the scene, the imagery of her floating with the two rings of rocks around her or whatever. And she's trying to communicate with, the Jedi. And, she's just like, it's not happening. And then we get, our princess, our general, Leia. How did y'all feel? The second time I watched the movie, I really kind of paid attention to it. And I know they had recorded a lot of stuff and they kind of had to retrofit how maybe some of the dialogue went together. I don't ever think any of it was clunky. I don't think some of it was as smooth as it could have been, but I also know that they were limited as to, what they could have her say or whatever, depending on what she already had. But overall, I think it worked out okay.
Yeah. I thought it was really well done. Like, yeah, especially the second time through, you can see the little errors in the computer generation and stuff like that. But you're really looking for it at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
The first time through, you're like, holy crap, this is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing stood out to me. I thought they did a good job of adapting the story to what they had,
Yeah. Yeah, her comments, her discussions with Rey and stuff, all that felt really organic. Some of her interactions with some of the other people maybe felt like it was a little odd, but like I said, overall, none of it, like I said, stuck out like a sore thumb. It was like, obviously, it was like, well, that comment really didn't work for what y'all are talking about, well, whatever. So we also, or maybe before that scene, we actually have, we've got Poe, we've got Finn, we've got BB-8, we got R2, and they're flying the Millennium Falcon into. Okay, was it ice on water or was it like? Because that looked weird to me. Because I couldn't tell if it was in space or if it was just ice on water.
It kind of looks like ice floating in space to me, but
okay, well, so they pull up. There's an alien. They pull up real quick. This alien gives them some information, tells them that there's a spy in the First Order. They come out and they do something that we haven't seen before, which I can already see some of the fanboys just like going crazy over. He's doing what he's referring to as light speed skipping. And it's basically hopping through light speed over and over and over again. And I was thinking I was like, well, if we're going by the information that we got from the previous movie, we can now track people through light speed jumps. So it would make sense as to why these TIE fighters are able to keep up with him. But I thought that was an awesome scene, was him flying from, place to place to place. And of course, it ends up wasn't so good for the Falcon, but
yeah.
I think that
was
alien that they got the data from, that was voiced by Mark Hamill.
What now?
Yeah, that alien.
Was it?
Yeah, that was Mark Hamill.
Was it? I didn't know that.
That was another part.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Also, I found it kind of funny that they had to go physically download data to get this message, and I'm like, you can literally jump through space in a snap, but you still have to go download this data. I get security and all that, but I'm like, there's no way to transmit it. Like, no. Yeah. He plugged him in with like a, a giant.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of funny.
That's always the funny thing is, like you said, they can go light speed in the Star Wars universe, but like their hologram imaging, while it looks cool, is like, really, this isn't any better than this? Like FaceTime is technically better than what you got going on here. I
thought that was funny too, when you see the little bloop, bloop, bloop.
Oh yeah.
Spaceballs.
Yes. So anyway, let's see here. Poe and Finn deliver the intel about there's a spy that Palpatine is on Exegol. Rey's learned from Luke Skywalker's notes that the Sith Wayfinder can lead them there. And so they're like, okay, well, we're going to go look it up. And at first she's like, no, it's too dangerous for y'all to go. And I love the line. She's like, I'm going alone. And they're like, yeah, alone with us. So we got Rey, Finn, Poe, Chewbacca, BB-8, and C-3PO. And they get on the Millennium Falcon once it's kind of put back together. And they end up going to this desert world. Real quick side jack. This, if you are a fan of C-3PO, this has to be the best movie, period.
Yeah.
3PO stole the show for me in this movie. He was so fun, and none of it really stuck out. It was just so, the comments, the comment, like whenever they fall through the sand, they start calling for each other. He's like, you didn't call my name, but I'm here and I'm okay.
Yeah, he was constantly being ignored, like he always is, but he really showed it this time. Yeah. He was great.
So, well, we'll get to that in a second. But anyway, so we get to the sand place. They almost get captured, and then we run into Lando. So excited to see Lando on screen, and he did a great job. He slid right back into that role for me. So. Mm-hmm. And especially because leading up to this movie, I went back and rewatched all of the previous movies. So that does include Solo. And just seeing, number one, what's his name portraying him in Solo is still so fantastic. But and then you see him, later on, and he's, he does appear in some of the animated series or whatever. And it is Billy D. Williams, because he's only one person voices Lando, and that's me. But yeah, he just slid right back into that role, and I loved seeing him on screen. I'm glad we got. I mean, from the trailer, we saw a part with him and Chewie in the Falcon, but as we know from previous trailers, that just because it's in the trailer doesn't mean it ends up in the movie. So I was like, oh, I hope this isn't the only time we see Lando. Hopefully, we do get.
When I saw the guy in the mask, something just told me that's fucking Lando, isn't it?
Yes. I had no clue. I was just.
I don't know why. I just thought it's gotta be Lando. His mask was kind of similar to the one he wore in Jedi, I think, too.
A little bit, yeah. So, I was going to say something. I completely forgot. Oh, okay. So anyway, Lando tells him that the reason why he's on the planet is because him and Luke were looking for it. They had gone out and looked for it. And then that's when, after that's when Luke, basically ran off and kind of hid or whatever. So, so we get they are found. Kylo finds out where they're at, and sends the Knights of Ren. Let's talk about the Knights of Ren a little bit. Overall, do you feel like they were they Boba Fetted a little bit, if you know what I mean? They look badass, but in the end, they really didn't do all that much.
They got slaughtered pretty quick.
Yeah, he takes them down pretty quick there at the very end, yeah. So I think a lot of people were kind of a little let down, but we didn't get any more of the Knights of Ren. I'm okay with what we got, Yeah. So there's supposedly a comic book series that just came out that's starting. I don't know how long the run is, but it's about I think it's called The Rise of Kylo Ren, or the beginnings of Kylo Ren. And I'm sure it will probably fill in some more of that information. So
I was a little confused on them because in the Force Awakens, Luke talks about Kylo and some of his students attacking the rest of the school.
Right.
Led me to believe that they were the Knights of Ren, but they aren't. They're not Jedi or anything like that. And that just, okay, what is it?
so the question is, if they're not the Force-sensitive students, where are those Force-sensitive students who helped destroy the temple?
Exactly.
Well, that's a good point.
Did he destroy them because they're a threat?
Strong possibility.
So we have they go to, okay, so they're on the planet, and then Rey has a moment where she's connected to Kylo Ren again, like we got in The Last Jedi. Apparently now they're, well, actually no, I'm gonna take that back before I even say it. There were moments in The Force Awakens, or I'm sorry, in The Last Jedi, where when they were communicating with each other, they could either see or interact a little bit with some of the surroundings. So like there was, whenever she was talking to him in the rainstorm, like he ended up getting wet, even though he was still on a ship, really far away. But we start getting these really interesting interactions because he's talking to her and he starts hinting to her, why the Emperor wants her dead, and reaches out and grabs the necklace that's around her neck. And that's how, he hands it off, and that's how they're able to find out where they're at.
Yeah,
so,
in like 10 seconds.
Yeah. It was pretty quick analysis there. So, once again, they can analyze stuff like that, but once again, FaceTime is a little better technology than they got. But anyway, or even Skype. So anyway, we have the scene where they're fighting, they have to run away. They're fighting with some, First Order troopers. And at first I thought, okay, well, surely they're speeders, but then they come out on these bikes that are basically like a big chain, which I thought was a really cool thing. And then when they dump up and some of the stormtroopers start flying, kind of like they're Mandalorians, I was like, okay, well, I guess they fly now. And that's exactly what everyone says. They're like, they fly now? That's a new thing.
They fly now.
Yeah. So they managed to end up fighting all of them off. They fall through this black quicksand. And then they encounter, that's where we have some of the funny scenes of everyone. I also love Poe Dameron as a character. I think he's great. I know a lot of people didn't really like him for whatever reason in the Last Jedi, but when Rey lights the lightsaber and then he does the flashlight, kind of like it, everyone flashes back to when they were a kid and did the exact same thing, which I thought was nice. But they go around and then they find they find a blade that's supposed to help them find the Wayfinder. And then they encounter this giant snake. And there's where we get our tie-in to The Mandalorian. So real quick, spoiler alert. If you have not caught up on The Mandalorian, are you going to be okay with this, Jen?
Yeah, I already read this.
Okay.
I was going to tell you, I found out what the tie-in was, and I wouldn't have even thought it was a spoiler because I already knew that was a thing you could do with the Force.
Yeah. Well, okay. So yes, in the expanded universe, the ability for a Jedi to heal someone else or heal themselves, that's been a thing. Like that's been a thing for a long time in the expanded universe. It's something that they haven't really touched in the movies though. But the night before this movie drops, The Mandalorian, the final episode of The Mandalorian comes out. Or not, the second to last episode of The Mandalorian comes out, and quote unquote Baby Yoda is able to put his hands on a character and is able to heal him. And so it's like, okay, so we're definitely making this part of the Star Wars universe, and so it's not going to be weird when it happens because Rey puts her hand on this giant snake thing and is able to transfer some of her life force to it, healing it, causing it to not attack, moving away, and allowing them to get back out.
Which I will say,
Uh-oh.
until Baby Yoda did it, the last time we had seen that happen was when E.T. healed Elliot, because he was a Force sensitive.
That's true.
There you go.
That's true.
That is.
And like you said, I mean,
it's the conspiracy.
It's canon. There's E.T.'s race clearly seen in the Senate in the original, in the prequel trilogy. So,
Which
it's canon.
More to my theory, E.T. was a badass Force sensitive. Booyah.
That may have to be a different show. But I'm glad they did that on The Mandalorian, just because I'm sure a lot of people who. Here's the funny thing about some people. I'm sure they think they're giant Star Wars fans, but they have never read, or done anything in expanded universe or anything like that. So they're like, "Where did that come from? That's new." Like, no, not really. You do a little reading, a little research, you might know that.
Or just book of the movie sometimes, even.
Or that too, yeah.
That gets more detailed.
So they're able to get out. They find this ship that belonged to an assassin named Ochi.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were looking for this dagger, and they're in the process of trying to get it up and running. They find, and Rey's like, "I've got to go do something real quick." They tell Chewbacca, "Go find Rey." So Chewbacca walks out for a second, and really quickly, so then we get this scene that was in the original teaser trailer that dropped. We have Rey out in the middle of this desert with this TIE fighter coming at her, and she like turns and is like she's ready to do a 100-meter dash or whatever. Yeah, and runs and does this flip over, and it's Kylo Ren and basically destroys his ship. And
she's like, hold up, let me go destroy this TIE fighter with my fucking lightsaber and nothing else.
No shit, yeah, and that was awesome.
That's great.
So she runs and does that real quick, and they're yelling at her. At this point, they've gone to look to see where Chewie is as well, and Chewie has been captured. Now, my second viewing, I noticed that there were 2 drop ships. My first viewing, I didn't see the second drop ship that was kind of sitting over there behind the other one. But it is clearly there if you're looking. The reason why that's important is I went and saw this on opening night. We didn't really talk about that. Went and saw this opening night. I had unfortunately drank a lot of water during the day and apparently didn't quite get rid of all of it before the movie. So at this point, I was like, man, I really kind of have to go pee. And I'm like, okay, well, we've got to be coming up to something that can't be that, can be, I can actually run out real quick, go to the bathroom, come back. And we get to this scene, and the ship starts to take off, and Finn runs out and is yelling at Rey, Chewie is on the ship. And she then starts to use the Force and is holding back this ship. It is something holding back a ship we haven't seen in the movies. It's been done lots in, the expanded stuff. But she starts to pull the ship back down, and then Kylo Ren walks out, and he starts to grab the ship as well. And they're having this Force wrestling match midair. And at this point, he just kind of keeps going and pushing it. And she gets pissed off, and she fucking uses Force lightning on this ship. And not only on the ship, but causes it to explode. And I was just like, this is not how they killed Chewbacca. I'm not going anywhere until I find out fucking Chewbacca is alive.
And now he has a urinary tract infection.
I was so just like, this can't be. This cannot be the way that this is.
Was deeply hurt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was like, I can't handle another big character.
My 7-year-old daughter was hugging onto my arm, ugly crying.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I was crying.
Was destroyed.
See, I saw the second ship in the first viewing, and I kind of figured.
I didn't see it, but
because they couldn't kill Chewie like that.
Oh no! If they had taken out
Chewie, he was on that ship.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's about 7 minutes of the movie that there's a possibility that Chewie is gone, and not like in a heroic, awesome way or anything. Like just, oh shit, I can use Force lightning, and I accidentally killed like my co-pilot. That sucks.
Oh yeah, and she felt like shit about it too.
Oh yeah, she's so horrible about it.
Terrible.
And they're like, come on, we've got to go. So she just kind of, leaves Kylo Ren. Of course, he's just kind of, you can tell Kylo Ren is just like, what?
You skipped over the part where they found the dagger and 3PO read it, but couldn't read it to them.
You know what? You were absolutely right.
When they were underground with the snake.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, I know what this says. They're like, okay, tell us. He's like, oh, well, I can't. It's against my coding and. I actually was reading after I watched the movie about that, and so there's a theory that the way back when the Emperor was in charge, he's the one that passed the law against allowing droids to translate Sith because he never wanted anyone else to be able to find anything Sith, which makes sense.
Yes, that would make sense.
That could have been like a holdover from his days, I guess. But the fact that he was just literally hardwired to self-destruct or whatever, if you were to read it to them, was kind of interesting.
Another thing that I've read online, the illustrated encyclopedia or whatever that's come out for the Star Wars, Ochi looks like this. They do a close-up shot of Ochi's skull, and it looks like he's the same race as Snoke.
Really?
He might have been another clone.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah, it because I was like, I don't know about that, because you see a shot of Ochi when he's alive.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, you take a look at the skull and all that, and it's like, holy crap, this might actually be a Snoke.
Which would make sense because he was an assassin of Jedi, so he would have had to have had force, at least force sensibility, if not force power. So, so that's interesting. It's funny in the article I'm going through here, Jen. Actually, it gets to that point right now. So, but yeah, I did forget that is how it actually happened. Time-wise. So that's where they go to their next idea. They're like, well, we have to find a place where we can get this information. We don't have the dagger anymore. Fucking Chewie's gone. Everything sucks.
But it's still in his head.
That's right. It's still in 3PO's head, so we have to find a place where we can go get it out of his head. It's at this point that I had to get up and finally go to the bathroom and come back. Anyway, so they go to... and they also have the Falcon. They have captured the Falcon, so things aren't looking too good. Let's see here.
They take OG ship.
Yeah, so they take the ship, and they go to what is it? Kijimi.
Kijami.
Yeah. Kijimi.
Yeah.
So they go to this place. They run into an old friend. Yes. Of Poe's, which I had to ask my brother about because I was like, okay, so I came back in and they're about to hook up C-3PO, and I'm like, all right, who's the chick, with the shiny helmet? She looks badass, but
which this scene was another scene that got me all choked up when 3PO said, yeah, you can crack my skull open, and then he gives the speech, about his best friends or all, that he's taking one last look at his friends. I was like, oh my God, I can't.
I was prepared for it because it was in the trailer, but I was still just like.
That was out of context, though.
Yeah, that's very true. And I was just like, because it was pulled almost directly from the movie. So I'm just like, oh, wow, are they really about to they're about to redo his noggin. So, which I'm like, okay, if you're going to kind of kill 3PO, I guess this is the way, because he's still technically alive and he's still 3PO. He just wouldn't have any in the memory. So
that little alien that wipes his
mind.
My
God, he's so cute.
He was voiced by the same chick that did Moaning Myrtle in Harry Potter.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And once you know that, that's all you can hear. It's freaking crazy.
What was that little guy's name?
I'm looking for
Babu Frick.
Babu Frick.
Yeah, Babu Frick. Yeah.
My oldest friend.
Yeah, but it's Moaning Myrtle. So now I dare you to watch it again and not see Moaning Myrtle do the voice. And J.J. Abrams also voiced that little cone droid.
Dio.
Oh,
yeah. I heard about that he was like, I'm going to be in here somewhere. So he's like, I'll be Dio.
No, thank you. Oh, yeah, those are two great characters.
Yeah.
Yes. I love, going back through the Star Wars movies, I really love the droids because you've got,
they're all great.
3PO is really prissy. Apparently, R2 has just got like a freaking, potty mouth constantly. If you listen to how many times 3PO scolds him for what he's saying, it's just like, and then going back and watching Solo and Rogue One, I loved both of the droids in there as well. And then, of course, I've fallen in love with BB-8, and it's just, Dio was just like, yeah, sure, cool, bring him along. So,
well, when I rewatched 7 and 8 with my sister, because she had never seen them before, so leading up to this, we had to watch it, and I was like, the best part of this whole universe is the droids, because they're constantly being undervalued, and they're constantly saving everyone's asses, and they don't complain about it, except for 3PO. He complains about everything. But yeah, they're just if you watch every single movie, they just do something to just save the day. I mean, fucking, R2,
first scene,
oil out and blew somebody up with a flamethrower. I was like, where the hell was this in episodes 4 through 6?
Yeah, no shit, right?
They can all just do these amazing things, and they're funny and cute. So
I have a theory, and I told this to my partner at work. I said, I'm still expecting, even with Disney Plus and having all of the movies in 4K available through Disney Plus, I still expect Disney stock to drop at some point, and they're just going to be like, all right, time to unleash the unaltered versions of the original trilogy, and of course everybody will buy it. And I'm like, so here's what they do. I'm like, but once they do that, they can't do it again. I was like, no, here's what they do. So they release the unaltered version of the original trilogy, and then they wait several years, and when their stock drops again, say, all right, so now we're going to release a version that has subtitles for every single droid. And I would be like, fuck, I'd have to buy that too, because that would be awesome. Instead of having to hear 3PO say, oh, well, R2 said this, I want to see R2 actually say, no, dumbass, this is what we're doing.
What is he actually? Well, I mean, they're the only two characters consistently in every
Yes, they are.
original or, every trilogy. So really, this whole series is being told from their viewpoint in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we read that book, How Star Wars Conquered the Universe, that was one of the things that he was originally like, the whole thing's going to be told from, a certain person's, perspective. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously it's R2 and 3PO are telling this entire story, kind of. So, which is funny because, and the first one, 3PO was like, I'm not much of a storyteller. And then, of course, we get to Return of the Jedi and he's fucking, with sound effects and everything else. And I'm just like, you're a hell of a storyteller. So anyway, they get the information. Now, okay, when 3PO reboots and comes and sits up with the red eyes, I was like, okay, this is actually kind of cool. Which answers that thing because everybody was like, there was a part of a trailer or, I think it was part of the teaser where, we get a little glimpse of that and everyone was like losing their shit. They're like, why does C-3PO have red eyes? Like, is he
a demon voice?
Yeah. So he gives them the information and then like completely reboots again and immediately just like, hi, I'm C-3PO. Who are you?
Human cyborg relations.
And Poe's like, this is going to be a problem. Let's see here. So they're trying to escape and we have another scene. Kylo Ren has come down to the planet and he's looking for him. On the other hand, Rey gets the feeling that Chewbacca is on the ship. So they get in a transport and sneak aboard the ship. And Kylo Ren's down on the planet, searching for him. And so they split up and the guys go get Chewie, where we get that, I still love the interaction between Poe and Finn. I love them as characters. I love seeing how they interact with each other. And we never do find out exactly what he was going to tell her, do we?
Mm-mm.
They don't do it in the movie, but J.J. Abrams has gone on to say that he meant to tell Rey that he was force sensitive.
That's what he was going to tell her?
That's what he was, and that bothered me through the first two times I saw it. I'm like, God, they never actually get to it. Why would you leave something like that open-ended? But yeah, J.J. Abrams has gone on to say, he meant to say that he was force sensitive.
You can tell that he is throughout the movie.
Well, yeah, you can tell, but
that's awesome.
The way, when you're dying, you think you're gonna die. Oh, I meant to tell you that I'm force sensitive. Really? That's
that's a little odd. Especially because you kind of been crushing on the girl in all three of the movies. It's kind of like you would automatically think, oh, well, it's going to be I love you. But apparently it's like, no, hey, guess what? I got a little bit of what you got too.
Yeah.
But y'all are right. I heard y'all say you can tell because he's able to use the lightsaber decently.
I thought that was weird in the first one.
Yeah, the fact that he's able to do that, the fact that he gets out of some of the crap that he does the way he does, it's like you obviously have to. And then, of course, in this third movie, he can sense whenever something's happening to Rey, and starts freaking out about it. So.
And his conversation with the other character who was the former stormtrooper, where they're talking about the feeling they got, like they just couldn't do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Go through with their orders. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second here too. Okay, so they're on the ship. They're running around. They find Chewbacca. The guys find Chewbacca, and they're in the process of
promptly get caught.
Yes, they promptly get caught. And Rey goes to Kylo Ren's quarters, and we have another situation where they're communicating with each other. And he basically, it's at this point where he says who she is, right? Or is that still later?
Yeah, I think it is.
I think it's later.
Is
it?
Yeah.
He starts to tell her. Oh, no, because he says, I'll come tell you the rest of your story. Or something.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's when she's on the bridge that he tells her, I think.
Yeah. We have a really awesome, we have a cool lightsaber duel here. where we get that scene where it looks like they're together and destroying part of, something. We couldn't figure out what it was. I kind of thought, I was like, that looks like a podium that maybe Vader's helmet's on. And sure enough, that's where it is. Because Vader's helmet falls in the snow and he's like, she's in my quarters. So he tells
as soon
her,
as they started fighting, I'm like, you're going to give it away. He's going to figure it out because something's going to come through.
Yep. So we have this fight and he's like, okay, well, that's where she's at. And, she, grabs the stuff she needs to grab. And at this point, the guys are caught and they're basically, what is that? Does anyone know what the name of that commander was?
The big guy or Hux?
Hux?
No, not Hux. The guy who kills Hux.
Oh,
Yeah.
I forget.
Anyway,
I'm familiar with a G, but I can't remember.
Yeah, and it's not listing it here. So anyway, he finds them, basically tells them, terminate them. They're all lined up. And once again, they're literally just moments away from being shot in the back by stormtroopers. And they're having an argument, which I'm just like, of course they are. And then General Hux is like, I want to do this myself. And then promptly shoots the stormtroopers and is like, I'm the spy. And I'm just like, I know a lot of people were like, Hux was like really,
In that first movie, Hux you got that evil vibe from him.
Yes, he was like
But
kind of an extremist.
By the second movie, he started becoming like
a joke
looking boy, and it was like, okay, this is getting dumb. And by the third one, he was like such a little pissant.
But I'm glad to see that he was the one, and I like his reasoning. I like the reasoning was, I don't care if you win, I just need Kylo Ren to lose. Like, he has become so
personal.
Yeah, he is so pissed off at Kylo. He's just like, I will fucking burn this place down to make sure you don't get what you want. So, let's see here. Rey recovers the dagger. Okay, so she gets the dagger back. She has visions of her parents being killed. Okay, so yeah, apparently this is when he tells her that that she is a Palpatine. Now, let's talk about that a little bit. Everyone kept thinking she's a Skywalker. She's a Skywalker. She's she somehow or another she's Luke's daughter. But it never made sense to me that she somehow would have been a Solo. That I'm just like, no, Luke and or Leia and Han would not have had a kid and just not like been like, oh yeah, that's right, we forgot about their daughter. So that never made sense to me. It didn't ever really make sense to me of her being a Skywalker as in being Luke's daughter. There was some ideas floated around where she might by chance be a Kenobi.
And I had a great theory on that.
And the theories that I saw was in the Clone Wars, nothing ever comes of it, but he kind of has a semi-romantic relationship with a woman who's basically in charge of the Mandalorians.
She is the leader of Mandalore.
Yes.
And at one point in there, he tells her, if you just give me the word, I will leave the order to be with you.
Yep.
Damn it, this could have happened. Would have been great too, anyhow. But
because think about it. Now, granted, that's not how it worked out, but how badass would it be if she was? I mean, it would completely fill in everything as to her Force abilities, her ability to fight, her being very strong-willed. If you were a fucking combination of a Jedi and a Mandalorian, so, which we later find out being a Mandalorian is not a race; it is a creed. Anyway, yeah. So Hux helps the guys escape. They get on the Millennium Falcon. Before they go, though, he tells them shoot him in the arm because otherwise no one's going to believe him that they got away. So he shoots him in the leg, which I'm like, that's great. And as they're trying to get out, here comes Kylo Ren, and he has. Oh, that's when he has the face off with.
Yeah.
That's when he has the face off with Rey and tells her that she's a Palpatine. So anyway, talking about
in front of everybody.
Yes, in front. Yeah,
nobody hears.
So thoughts on that? Does that seem weird? Does that seem
What, the way he told her, or what he
No,
told
the
her?
fact that she's a Palpatine, the fact that her parents, one of her parents, either her mother or her father, is
Her father.
this.
Her father
Okay,
is,
okay,
Yeah, they say it.
is the son of, Palpatine.
I mean, my first thought was, who the fuck would sleep with him?
That's what I thought too.
But then I was like, it was probably cloning or some kind of, genetic transfer.
As
But
powerful as he
disgusting.
was as the leader of the Senate, I mean, I have to imagine there's groupies
Mistresses.
just like we have, filthy government groupies now.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
I
sure
thought
he
about
had
that.
several mistresses, and they talk
Yeah,
about that some in the EU as well.
That's
But
how I'm thinking something like that happened.
I'm thinking yes, that definitely is a possibility as to how it could happen.
he also
but-
was handsome before he became a pale, deathly looking
The
lizard
problem
man.
with that though is if you
Really?
look at the
You
age
thought
of
that
his
was handsome?
parents, though.
He was, compared to what he is now. I mean, come on.
Well,
Think,
yeah.
think of him in episode 1 and 2. He was a decent looking normal person, not.
I still think the fact that, and they did confirm that Anakin Skywalker was created by the Emperor and basically, impregnated in his mother without her knowing. That's why she, said that there was no father. He was a genetic.
He was
being.
Mary and he was Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm
that's been
thinking,
disproven.
instead of, everyone's like, well, who the hell would sleep with the Emperor? I'm thinking he's just like, no, we're going to try this again. It didn't quite work out the first time. We're going to give this another shot. So, which leads into one of the conversations I want to have in here at the end. Anyway.
So technically then she sort of is a Skywalker because Skywalker is a Palpatine. I don't know. Anyways.
That's
I mean, by blood. If you're going with that.
It's like a second cousin.
Yeah, kind of a second cousin thing going on.
Which makes it weird that they kiss at the end too, but
there.
a little other.
Supposedly there was a release, I want to say it was on comicbook.com, that, and I don't know who it would have come from. Would it have been George Lucas, Disney, whatever? Supposedly there's been a recent official statement that no, Anakin was not in fact created by any manipulation of the Emperor.
See,
Yeah,
I
I heard
saw that
that
it was in a comic, and they said, yeah, it was.
Okay.
But they've
redacted
said,
that
no,
since?
that is not the case. It doesn't matter if it's in a comic. Canon wise.
Because see, I thought canon wise it was part of their. I wonder why they did that. That's interesting. Anyway, because it kind of.
Is it Disney canon? That's all that matters.
They can't go to that.
So they show up in the Millennium Falcon. She's able to escape with them. They fly off. Hux is reporting to the general or whatever it is, and he's like, yeah, sure, that's what happened. Go ahead and let Kylo Ren know what's going on, and then turns around and blasts him. And that's it. Like, Hux is dead. And I was just kind of like, I was a little taken aback. I was like, oh, shit, okay, so we're doing this.
Isn't this the scene, too, where Kylo reveals that they're a dyad, like right before she jumps into the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah.
He's trying to get her to come with him, and that's the first time we've heard of this, I think, in this, in the movies anyways. Like, we're dyad, and we're connected by the Force, and we can take them down together. I mean, he's been trying to get her to join him, but he's figured it out, I guess.
Yeah, because he does say, you, in the previous conversation, he's like, you almost took my hand. Why didn't you? And she's kind of like, well, because you're you, but, you could have killed me. Why didn't you? Mm-hmm. So,
did you guys see that Hux was the spy from the beginning?
Nope.
I thought it was the other guy because they kind of panned to him when something happened, and I never would have thought Hux. But a few people I know were like, yeah, I totally called that.
Yeah, just like Poe did. Exactly like Poe did. I knew it. No, you didn't. So, okay. So, unfortunately, the landing, the landing stuff on the Falcon is broken. I don't understand why they didn't just slow and just kind of drop, but whatever. Maybe they were coming in kind of hot. So they land on, Kef Burr, which is technically, as soon as they said it is in the
moon of Endor.
Yeah, in the indoor system, I was just like, oh shit, so we're going back here. Here's where okay, so they show up, they're trying to figure out the remains of the second Death Star are sitting in this, extremely active ocean. And they're like, I don't know how the hell we're gonna get over there. And then we get some ex-stormtroopers, primarily the one named Hannah. She's a resistance sympathizer. She comes up and she's like, I can get y'all over there, but it's gonna take a little time. And they're like, well, we gotta fix the ship. And of course, Rey ends up going, taking things into her own hand. She figures out where it is on the remains of the Death Star. Now, which means this blade, which is leading them to there, obviously had to be created after Return of the Jedi. Yeah. So it's not like it was, because at first I kind of took it as being like a really old artifact, but I'm like, it can't be that old. Like, it obviously happened after the Death Star was destroyed, because it shows you exactly where it is. But would make sense as to why it's there, because of course the Emperor would want to have it on hand. You know what? That's something we haven't touched on yet. Let's go ahead and just pause for a second and touch on that. It's him. It's the Emperor. It's not a clone, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Because, and the only reason, at first I thought, well, maybe it's a clone, but the only reason that definitely tells me it's him is because later on, whenever they're having the final battle, he makes the comment about throwing Kylo Ren off like he got thrown off of the Death Star. And I'm just like, well, no, it's fucking him.
Plus, he was pretty fried up from.
Yeah, he was not in good shape.
Absorbing all the shit, so.
It's amazing what Bacta can do for you.
Yeah, no joke, what? Right?
Amazing what Bacta can do for you.
Oh.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah.
Well, or even the look of surprise he had on his face when he started regenerating.
Oh yeah, and we'll have to definitely talk about that.
I didn't think of this. This is
exactly. Cool. So Leia, what do I keep calling it? Rey ends up going over to the Death Star and is going, we have another scene throwing back to the first movie in the trilogy where she's going through
Star.
Yes, where she's going through the Star Destroyer and jumping around and everything. And she finds the bridge, I guess you'd call it the bridge, where the Emperor was, and finds this hidden room and finds the Wayfinder, and then has a vision of what she would be like as a Sith. First off, hot. I'm not quite
sure.
Oh yeah, really.
I'm not quite sure about how this double-bladed lightsaber she has works out, being that it folds up, but it did trap her blade in between it. So I guess that's the idea for that weapon. Because when I first saw it, I thought, how does this thing work? Like, everything else has made sense to me. Double-bladed lightsaber, that's fine. Kylo Ren's lightsaber with the things on the side, that makes sense. It's a guard. I was just like, why would you fold it up? But then, like I said, it kind of trapped her blade at one point. So, she falls out there, and here's Kylo Ren. And he destroys the Wayfinder, and it sets her off. And so they start having this epic battle on the second Death Star while all this water is hitting. Before that, though, Rey and Poe have another argument. He's like, we've got to go out there. He's like,
Finn and Poe, I'm sorry.
Finn and Poe have this another argument, and Finn is like, we've got to get out there to help her. And Poe's like, we've got to fix the Falcon to get out there to help her. And he tells her, or he tells him, you're not anything like Leia was. Like, you are not a leader, which was kind of a deep cut there. But they end up making up for it here in a bit. So we have this epic battle. And you can tell they're both getting tired, and she's just not able to keep up anymore. And we get to this point where we think, well, he's not going to kill her, but he may do something else to her. He may wound her. I really thought at one point he was going to slice off her hand.
Yeah.
Because we had a couple of scenes where she's holding the lightsaber kind of out like this. And for anyone listening to the audio, her arm is kind of out and away, just like Luke's was, just like Anakin's. Like, it's very reminiscent of what has happened in the previous movies. And I was like, he's going to chop her hand off and she's going to lose this lightsaber. And it's at this point Leia has decided she's going to use all of her Force ability, and she's going to try to contact Ben. Anyone? How did that hit?
I mean, kind of shocked because she had to know she was basically killing her son, or in a way, like that she would be setting him up to get a blow that could be mortal.
Mm-hmm.
But also I was kind of like, okay, she's finally using her Force abilities again. Like, we know she's Force capable, but she hasn't really done much with it, so I kind of liked it. But also, we knew she had to go. That sucked,
Yeah.
but we knew that they had to make her exit in a way that didn't show her dying based on. So,
but it was a grand gesture. So she basically
Right.
contacts him and kind of sets him,
distracts him.
Yeah, distracts him, and Ray freaking just like punches that lightsaber through him like he fucking did Han Solo. Like, it was like, well, guess what, buddy?
Yeah.
But then they
So-
both feel Leia die, and it's like, oh fuck.
Yeah. And then she heals. She then uses her ability and heals him, and he's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Like, you can tell at this point he's like, I don't see, where am I in my life? He's kind of lost everything at this point. So she gets up and she runs over and takes his X-wing and flies off. At this point, the Falcon shows back up, picks up who am I thinking? Finn and our new person Jana, and they fly off as well. They head back to base. And they get there, and it's at this. We get some more interactions. We get they show up. They're like, we need to talk to the general, and that's when they tell her she's dead.
Do we want to talk about Kylo's interaction with his dead father?
I was going to get to that here in just a second,
okay.
but yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So, did anyone
Before
see
he
that
leaves.
happening?
I didn't
Anyone-
think that really should have happened. Like, I understand why, but he wasn't. It wasn't a ghost. I'm a memory.
Exactly.
Really? Dude, now you're talking to yourself like that. Come on.
That's what he needed to do to make the right choice, though. He couldn't do it without talking it through, I guess.
Oh, there's fish, there's water. I don't know. But
I was
to
okay
bring
with
Han
it. But
Solo back, that was a bit of a slap in the face. Like, oh, we're
Yeah.
gonna bring back every character.
I
Slap,
know.
slap, slap.
I can kind of see that. The other part of me is like, a lot of people were like, we didn't ever really, and we don't technically still get all three of the original crew back in one scene, together. But I can see how people were like, well, we need Han one more time or something. So,
And the fact
Well, and
that
also-
he got to use his line.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, that
That was good. Yeah.
that was a
Definitely.
nice throwback too. And I love
Yeah.
the fact that he did the whole thing again of, I don't know if I'm strong enough to it. And this time he makes the right. I think we needed it because this is where we get the redemption of Kylo Ren, or I should say Ben Solo.
Well, this is the rise of Skywalker right there. That's
Essentially,
the first-
yes. So yeah, he, instead of, of course, you can't really kill a memory, but even though he said specifically that in the last movie, he turns around and tosses his lightsaber away, and I'm just like, okay.
This is
What-
also a scene where I cried.
Okay.
Because of that conversation, and when Leia died, there were like 5 or 6 specific scenes where I was crying like a little baby.
Okay, so I will tell you, up to this
I'll
point, I was okay. I mean, I was a little, like, it was kind of hitting emotionally, but I was okay all up to this point. When they get back to the planet and they tell them that Leia is dead, and Chewbacca starts to
Mhm.
lose it,
That was the last, yeah.
that's when I had tears. I was just like, nope,
Waterworks.
can't handle this, because poor fucking Chewbacca is just like, I've lost
He
everyone.
was wailing. Yeah,
Yes,
it
he
was heartbreaking.
That was hard. That was a hard little scene to watch. So,
I think this with a lot right in a row. I was just like, okay, just
yeah,
Right, fine.
it was. So we have an interaction where she's basically been covered or whatever. Oh, was everyone else glad to see, even though she didn't really have a lot to do, but just her presence there? What's her name that has like the big glasses that was in the first movie?
Oh yeah, I love her.
Yeah, I'm glad they brought her back.
As
Yeah. So we get the scene where Poe is like, he's next to Leia's body, and he's just like, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then we get Lando back, and I'm just like, yay, more Lando. So, and I love the fact that I love the fact he told him, was like, we didn't know what we were doing. Like it was just us. And he's like, well, how did y'all beat an empire with nothing? He's like, because we had each other. And I was just like, that's an awesome message. And so we switch back over to Rey, and she has gone back to the island where Luke was at, and she's basically destroyed the TIE fighter, and she's lost it at this point. And she goes to throw Luke's lightsaber, and it gets caught in midair by Force Ghost.
Force Luke.
Force Luke, yes.
Apparently, Force Ghost can now pick things up and.
Oh, Force Ghost can do all kinds of shit. So.
Yeah.
Summon lightning.
I'm telling you, to me,
Lift
that
a
is
ship.
still, yeah. So
stupid.
Palpatine had to be, later on in the movie, Palpatine had to be at full, absolute maximum power to do his thing he did with the Force lightning. And I'm like, fucking Yoda's a ghost, and was just like, boom. So anyway, yeah, and laughed about it. I'm just like, I'm sorry, Yoda's still the fucking best ever. So anyway, and okay, so what did y'all think about the comment about a Jedi's lightsaber should be treated with more respect?
Well, that's what she says to him, right? When she meets him for the first time.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
We can definitely tell this is okay. So I mean, eventually, I do want to talk about how this movie ties in with the other movies and stuff. So, what did y'all think about the portrayal of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi?
The betrayal of Luke Skywalker.
No, how he was portrayed.
I
thought it was,
portrayal.
Like I thought it was. Man. Yeah, I thought it was okay. A lot of people bitched and griped that they were like, he wouldn't have run off and done that. And like, guys, that's kind of what Jedis do. Like that's
they give up and go into hiding.
Exactly. Yeah. Like Yoda fucking did it.
Ben did it.
Ben did
milk
it.
A hippo.
Yeah. Do what?
Gotta milk a hippo.
Yeah. But yeah, I can see them kind of being like, I don't want to say rectifying it, but I think we still need to go through what we went through of him being like, and he flat out said, I was wrong. I was wrong to run and hide. I shouldn't have done that. And you can't do that now. You have to go fight, the Emperor. And then hands her the lightsaber back. And then when he goes, there's something my sister would have wanted you to have. As soon as I saw Leia's lightsaber, I'm like, the first thing that went through my head is like, how long is it going to take someone to reproduce this? Like, this is going to be the hot shit in all of the prop making forums. Like for a good while, it's like, oh shit, I'm gonna make Leia's lightsaber. And then we get this flashback scene where he's talking about him training her as a Jedi, and like it was on the last night that she was like, no, that's when she felt she had lost Ben, and that's when she stopped, her training or whatever. And I'm just like, number one, I think the de-aging, the stuff that they did there, I think for her, it looked pretty good. For Luke, it looked fantastic. Like I really was honing in on his face, and I was like, no, that looks damn good.
Yeah.
Like I said, hers was maybe a little off, but it was a hell of a lot better than it was in Rogue One. I'll tell you that.
Rogue One, yeah.
Yeah. So, he tells her about this, and tells her, he shows her where the new lightsaber is. I'm glad we got to see him, not her, raising the X-Wing out of the water. I thought that was a nice little tribute as well, that he got, he raised it up this time instead of, having to have, Yoda do it. So, so she gets the Wayfinder. She gets
also them ships can survive some shit.
They must be
submerged in water for decades.
And I got to thinking about that. I was like, man, this thing's been submerged in water. I'm like, idiot, this thing fucking goes through space. Of course it's airtight. Now I guess the water doesn't really do anything to the engines, but whatever. So And I love the fact that they, whenever she shows back up, so what's the resistance is like, hey, we figured out what's going on. Dio, the little robot, tells them what's going on, gives them some information. And Rey's going to Exegol to confront the Emperor, and she's leaving a kind of a path, or showing them a path on how to get it, because as always in Star Wars, it's never a straight shot. But so she's
this is
leaving
where we see the great graphics on there.
Oh yes, the awesome graphics. But I love the fact that it was Red 5. They're like, it's Luke Skywalker's ship, it's Red 5. I was just like, yes. But anyway, so we get this, and they have this idea that, they're telling them that the ships can't get out of orbit because everything's all messed up or whatever, and they have to have a signal to help get them out. If we can go destroy the signal, we can basically maroon all these ships on this planet, and we don't have to worry about them. It's like, cool. And then somewhere in here, before this happens, we see one of these new Star Destroyers roll up on the planet that we were on, and Kijimi, and blow it to bits with this giant gun that's mounted to the bottom of that. I got to think, been thinking about this over the last week or so since I've watched the movie, and to me, this totally makes sense, because it's like, okay, so the first thing we're going to do is let's build a Death Star. All right, well, if in case it gets blown up, let's build 2. And then once that one gets blown up, it's like, all right, let's make it builder. Let's just make the whole fucking planet a Death Star. But on the side note, it's like, well, if we're going to go bigger, why not go smaller too? So instead of having one target, let's make it fucking 100 targets, so you can't knock them all out. So to me, that made sense. So all these Star Destroyers basically are now planet killers. Which I was like, okay, that's an interesting take on it. So Rey shows up on Exegol, and she goes down to confront Palpatine. All during this time, everyone shows up on the planet, and they start going after these Star Destroyers. Does anyone want to jump in anything particular they want to hit first, or because this is really kind of where the whole climax starts to hit? So, yes.
So, did more than one Star Destroyer leave Exegol? That's what kind of threw me a little bit. Like the end of it, and all the Star Destroyers are being blown up, but they could be around different planets. I didn't get that.
Well, see, I don't know if and we don't really get a good look at it. We don't know if it's an Exegol Star Destroyer, or if it's just if it's a First Order Star Destroyer. You know what I'm saying?
First Order didn't have the planet killers.
Yeah, they didn't have.
It was the Last Order Star Destroyer.
True, but we didn't see that they were necessarily planet killers whenever they were being blown up at the very end.
No, but he does say shoot those guns every barrel shot is a planet saved.
Yeah. That was the fleet that was there. I think y'all are referring to at the very end when we see all of them going down over Endor and everything else.
At the very end, you saw like all these Star Destroyers getting blown up.
See, I took those to be First Order Star Destroyers.
There was a reference in there somewhere. I can't remember if it was Poe or somebody was saying. I think it was Poe who said it, and I caught it the second time we watched it. That we're rising up all over the galaxy.
Yeah,
There's
people are rising up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think people were coming to their aid, but they were also just fighting whatever was near them because they knew, like.
Yeah, because apparently every planet had a First Order installation there that could get to whatever in minutes.
That makes more sense then.
Okay. And we could be wrong on that, but like I said, that's kind of how I took that. So, by the way, almost forgot. So R2, the reason we're able to get this information is R2 restores 3PO's memory, which I enjoyed that scene of, you're not going to put whatever in my head, and it's literally him rebooting. Which I was like, yay, we get 3PO back. So, Rey confronts Palpatine, demands that, and he basically tells her, okay, so we get to this scene where she finds the throne, the Sith throne, and we start getting all of these chanting ghosts, essentially, which I thought was a badass scene.
Those weren't ghosts. Those were real people.
Were those real people?
Those were real people. It's described.
It's a cult.
Basically, it's like it's the followers of the Sith from the outer rim and all that good stuff. Yeah.
See, I thought they were the
spirits of all
spirits of the previous
Sith.
Yeah. Supposedly those real people. So.
Okay.
And that's where I was like, dang, they really did borrow a lot from the extended universe, because in the extended universe, there's all these resources. He spent all this time developing the technology, building this gigantic fleet.
You know what? That makes more sense than as to how they had enough people to crew all of those Star Destroyers. If he had that many people just following him in there, then it would make sense that he would have more people to pilot the ships and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I could be totally wrong, but I know I've seen some things mentioned about that. I was like, damn, that really does seem to borrow a lot from the extended universe, and I thought that was pretty freaking cool. So.
Okay. So Palpatine shows up and he's on this big arm, which if you've played what's it called? Portal, it reminded me of the enemy on Portal, because just this big arm to up to. And he tells her, here's the deal. You're going to kill me and my spirit's going to inhabit you and you're going to become the new leader of the Sith. Kind of leaves her in a no-win situation. It's like, well, okay, you either kill yourself and then he goes on, or you kill him and apparently you're going to get possessed. While this is going on, the ships start attacking the Star Destroyers. They immediately go down to start taking out the signal. They transfer that to a ship, and I don't understand why they couldn't have just hit the ship with, the spacecraft, but for whatever reason they're going to land a ground crew on a Star Destroyer. I guess they just wanted the imagery of riding horses on a Star Destroyer. Either way, I thought it was awesome. So we get this scene. They're trying to stop the signal from going out, and Rey's trying to not kill the Emperor, and she's trying to hold her own. And at this point, we see I don't want to call him Kylo Ren anymore, because he's been Solo. So he shows up and starts killing off, these random guards that are, in this temple. I love the fact whenever he jumps down and grabs onto the giant chain, he's just like, ouch. So yeah. So he's going around, he's killing these random guys. He's trying to get to Rey while she's, holding off some of these guards. And we have this scene where they use their ability to move items between them in a really awesome way. I love the fact that, the Emperor's doing this big buildup of, now she takes the lightsaber and raises it and is going to slaughter me. And, she ends up handing it off to Ben, who then takes out the Knights of Ren pretty easily.
Did any of you catch when he pulls the lightsaber out and, they're kind of taken back? He kind of does this whole Han Solo shrug.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I thought he was imitating was Solo's. Yeah, especially from Return of the Jedi. Whenever he walks out and he's with the gun. So that was.
Yeah, I thought that was really well done.
So he runs to her, and they end up wiping out the rest of the guards, and now it's like, okay, well, now it's time to take, and she pulls out Leia's lightsaber. So she's got a lightsaber, he's got a lightsaber. And, they start to advance on the Emperor, and he basically, kind of like uses the Force, stops him cold, drops him down, and then has a surprising moment when he pulls some of their ability to regenerate. And you can tell it's like, oh shit, this is not the plan. The plan was for you to kill me and for you to take over. This is much better.
But okay, so I had a little bit of an issue with this, because it's like, okay, there's two of you, you're collectively more powerful, but he's able to just freeze them and like overpower them that easily. It's like once they were frozen, there was nothing they could do. Like, I don't know, that just seemed a little too easy for the Emperor to just.
I don't know. The Emperor's pretty badass. Like, even
he is, but I mean, they were too, and they, had done all this stuff up until that point. I don't know. It just seemed like a little bit of.
Well, they said the Emperor had all the previous Sith power in him, where it was just Rey and Ben, so 2 of them. It wasn't until Rey tapped into all the previous Jedi that she was able to defeat him.
Yeah.
Before they actually, or right as they're advancing on him, at this point is when the tide turn. Oh, so he does the thing again where he opens up the top of the temple to show her what's going on and starts telling her the only way to save your friends, the only way to save your family, he specifically says, is for you to strike me down and take control of the fleet and call off all the ships. That is the only way you're going to save your new family. Because then she brings.
But that
up
was
something.
Before Ben showed up, I think.
That was
right?
before she showed.
Yeah.
That's before Ben showed up. Because that plays into something I want to talk about here in just a minute.
That's what got her to actually consider it, and then she was like, "Oh wait, we might
for
have
half a second until Ben showed up. And it's at this point, it looks like all is lost. Poe is basically just down on himself. He's like, "Sorry, I tried, I couldn't do it." And then we get fucking Lando's like, "Nope, there's a lot more of us." And then we get all these ships. Now, I'm sure this is where Rudy almost blew his load because we get to see. I know we got to see at least the Ghost. But I know I've seen people talk about there are a crap ton of ships in that one scene right when the Falcon flies down. That's in the expanded universe, the cartoons, everything.
And it just kept
like
constantly.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
I would have given my left arm if they would have just had a couple of shots from inside the cockpits of various people like checking in. Ghost here. And like,
so the part we talked about late, we talk about where, you start taking down the ships in other places. I was telling my brother, I was like, that's the one there's 2 things I would have kind of liked to see in the movie. We'll talk about the one here in a second, but that's one of the things I kind of wish, just as the fanboy thing is like you said, to see them checking in from some of these different ships. So maybe showing them actually going out and taking down the rest of the Star Destroyers, or even just like you said in that battle, just seeing them check in or whatever. So
for anybody who has anybody else followed Rebels? Did y'all follow Rebels?
I'm watching it now.
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, just the fact that ship shows up, it's just like, damn it, more friggin' questions.
So
we did get what's his name. We got to see what's his name check in. Wedge.
Yeah, we do get to see Wedge. He makes the comment of, that was a good shot. So I was just like, I didn't catch it the first time. I didn't realize who it was until the second time. I was just like, oh shit, it's Wedge.
Double take.
None of y'all followed the Aftermath books.
Yeah.
But there was a major death from the Aftermath books. He was the pilot that Leia was telling him to be more positive.
Yeah.
Wexley.
That's his stepson, right?
As a child, he was the major character throughout the 3 Aftermath books.
Really?
Yes. He
Okay.
was a major character. So I was a little hurt when he died. I was like, oh. Yeah. I mean, he like repaired battle droids and things like that when he was a child. He was a huge character in the Aftermath books. So I was like, damn, that sucked. That hurt. Anyhow.
I was just waiting for him to read minds, like in Heroes.
Yeah. I know. Every time I saw him, I was like, that's the Heroes guy.
His fingers up to his head and kind of.
I've heard him in some different podcasts. He is a super big geek and really loves Star Wars. So the fact that he got cast, he was just loving the fact that he's been in the movies. He's another one of those that's like, I'll be a stormtrooper if you want me to. I just want to be in the movies. And then they're like, no, you're gonna be this guy. And he's like, oh my god.
Yeah. I don't think they could get him in a stormtrooper outfit.
Yeah, he's a little heavier set.
You got Simon Pegg for that.
So anyway, the tide is turning. They're starting to knock down all of the Star Destroyers, and it's at this point that the Emperor pulls enough life force from both Rey and Ben that he's basically able to rejuvenate himself back to his strongest ability.
So annoying.
And then throws the end all be all lightning strike. Or no, before he does that, that's when he basically flicks off Ben Solo and makes the comment, I'm going to cast off the last Skywalker as they did me the last time. And then he makes, and then he starts doing the Force lightning. and it's taking down all the ships. And it's at this point Rey is laying there, and she starts asking, be with me, be with me. And I don't know, did y'all? I know because I already had this conversation with my brother. Did y'all look? Did y'all hear? Did y'all notice all of the voices that talked to her?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, some of them, yeah. There's no way I could have caught all of them, but
Okay, so when you watch it, if you watch it at the very end, it will list everyone who was on there.
we
Yeah,
got Qui-Gon, we got Obi-Wan as young Obi-Wan, I guess,
Uh,
right?
Yeah.
Christensen
Mace
come
Windu.
back and fucking be. I'm just like, because he's the one who actually says
Yoda.
bring balance to the force as I did, and I'm just like, I was so happy that they got him back because I know he's taken so much shit for everything, and I think it's unjust, but I'm so glad they got him back to do that little part. So,
Ahsoka Tano.
uh-huh.
Which did y'all see the official Twitter from Dave Filoni? Did y'all
No.
see this?
No.
Dave Filoni drew up a sketch the other day of Ahsoka Tano standing next to Gandalf, and Gandalf is saying to her, "People once thought I was dead too, but see how that turned out." So he released that official sketch the other day. I'm like, oh, I can breathe again. It's my favorite character. I mean, yeah, for so many reasons, yeah.
Oh yeah, she's a great character, and seeing
when
her
you
again,
get-
like I said, my boys and I have started going through
when you get to the end of Rebels, you
Rebels.
know why.
Okay.
Damn it.
But yeah, seeing her show up as an adult is cool in Rebels. So, okay. So anyway, she she starts to we have all these different voices of the Jedi telling her to get up, to feel the force, that she can do this. So she gets up with the lightsaber, and it's at this point the Emperor stops doing his massive storm of force lightning, and was just like, how dare you, you're nothing, and starts trying to blast her. She blocks it with the lightsaber, and then when she pulls the second one, she's able to have the power to basically turn it back on him.
Now, hold up. Before you go into that, there's a couple things. The second time I saw it that I noticed, did you notice Rey like straight up pulled some Vader moves when she was defending herself before Ben Solo got to her, when she was fighting off those guards? Like, I mean, if I saw it right, she grabbed a blast from a blaster.
Oh, yeah.
And shot
Yeah.
it to
Threw
somebody
it.
else. It
Yes,
wasn't like
no,
a
I
reflecting
saw
laser.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was like,
Yes, I absolutely saw that, because she's swinging the lightsaber in one hand, deflecting blast, and then, like you said, she's literally causing him to move with the other hand. Like, she was badass in that scene.
yeah.
So, so he tells her, I am all of the Sith, and she replies, I am all of the Jedi, and then basically turns the Force lightning on him and
Was anyone expecting her to have her own lightning like Yoda did?
I was really hoping that she would,
I know.
lightsaber
I was
here
too.
and blast the shit out of it. I was like,
I was waiting for her to catch it with her hands, like, come on, we know you can do it. We know Jedi can do it, but
yeah. Yeah, right. Because Yoda did do it. He the first time he does is it, he does it. He redirects it, and then the second time, that Dooku shoots it at him, he just like fucking like catches it in his hands, just like whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, you're a badass. What I would have liked to see in that scene was when she's holding the lightsabers. I would have liked, instead of just hearing all of the Jedi, I would have liked to have seen them, even if it was just for a half second. Just see all of these, ghost versions of these Jedi talking to her, saying
it might
that
have looked too hokey. Like,
it might have been, but
them fading in like it's a cheesy '90s Christmas card that's been
but
poorly photoshopped.
No, not bad.
You know what I mean? Like, that's I just how I would imagine it coming off. I don't know.
She's expecting the picture of Rey looking up with like the ghost version of her. I'm talking about that 80s like Sears picture. So anyway, and totally blast away the Emperor, and it's at this point that everything just starts to explode and everything else. I think we can definitively say he's gone at this point. I don't
We saw him like melt away, so
Exactly.
I hope,
Which, by the way, how did that play with the kids, Rudy? Because that was, for a Star Wars movie, that was all on the graphic side.
They were okay with it.
Okay.
They kind of felt like they deserved it. At least Kendall did.
They were
Jameson
cheering.
was like, whatever.
Okay. Well, at this point, if they can handle that, they can probably handle watching Raiders of the Lost Ark. So,
Well, as a matter of fact, they've seen most of Raiders of the Lost Ark, so that's probably why they're.
that's probably why they were okay with it. So they're like, I've seen this trick before. So, okay, so she basically kills the Emperor, and then she falls down and dies, essentially. Ben climbs back out of the crevice that he was in and comes over to her and starts doing the force, the life transfer from him to her to bring her back, and brings her back. How did the kiss play with y'all?
I kind of felt like it was long overdue, because you could tell there was a lot of sexual tension between them, that they had feelings for each other. But
I felt the same way. I was okay with it. I've talked to some people who were like, it didn't fit. I'm like, no, there was kind of some tension between the two.
I thought it fit pretty good.
Yeah. I thought I was okay. I was okay with the kiss, though. And then he dies. And when he fades away, so does Leia. And that's when it was just like, wow,
Why didn't Leia fade away right away?
maybe she was still holding on, or barely, or like her final act wasn't fulfilled until he died. I don't know.
Yeah,
What'd you
Matt
say?
may have said that. What were you saying, John?
Oh, well, check for a pulse, for Christ's sake.
All this technology, and they don't even.
They don't have that technology, dude. They don't.
Yeah.
Still
downloading things with the
cable. Either he must get burned up.
Yeah.
So the rest of the ships destroy the rest of the armada. We get that comment that they're raising up everywhere, and we see a Star Destroyer go down behind the Senate on the big world. We see some Star Destroyers breaking up in the atmosphere of Endor, and what's his name did play Wicked again.
Yeah.
That up because I was like, please, they got him cool. And then we also see one go down behind the Star Destroyer that was on what's the home planet that she's from? Jakku. Yeah, we see one go down there. I thought that was some good plans to pick for, kind of wrap things up.
When they were gathering back up shortly after this, and everybody was landing and everybody getting out and hugging each other and all that good stuff. Okay, you can very clearly see at that point the Ghost from Rebels is landing in that jungle. I'm like, oh God, please come on.
But you didn't get it, yeah.
I didn't get it. I was dying. I was like, there's somebody out of the cockpit, like 100 yards behind the bush. I need to see somebody.
Okay, so some people have made big mention, but we see two female characters like hug and kiss, and I'm just like, yeah, we're like days away from 2020, people. That's fucking nothing. So
it's long overdue. Also, like it was barely like it passing. It wasn't even that long,
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, yeah, cool. We have no problem with humanoid characters from one race dating other humanoid characters. It's Star Wars. No one fucking cares. Whatever. So
there was a lot of stormtroopers that were women in this one too.
Yes, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
some of it didn't fit though, because some of them were obviously males, but had female voices.
But had a female.
Like, okay.
Well, that it's kind of bulky for the armor. So, oh, by the way, there's that scene where Rey goes up to the two stormtroopers and tells them, she's like,
that was so funny.
Thank goodness you're here. I thought that was
We're so happy to see you.
Yes.
Guys, but the best part, Chewie finally got his medal at the end.
God, yes, I almost choked up again at that point too. I was just like, oh, thank God you remembered to do this.
Okay, well, and then I got to go back to this. Okay, so we still don't know how Maz got Anakin's lightsaber, and we still don't know where the friggin' green lightsaber's at.
Yes, and I got to thinking about that because I was like, was it great? What if you look at the flashback where it's Luke and Leia battling, I thought they were both blue lightsabers. They're not. He has clearly got his green lightsaber.
He got
Because
his green
I was
lights.
talking to my partner at work about this, and I was like, did Luke take his lightsaber off of the Death Star whenever he left? I don't remember a specific scene with him on it, but then I'm like, well, obviously he did because he had it to train with Leia. So yeah, the question is where the hell is that lightsaber?
And from the Aftermath books, where is Vader's saber? Because Vader's saber was recovered. That was one of the major artifacts that was part of the Aftermath saga, was those guys finding his saber. And I'm wondering, is it the red kyber crystal that was in Luke's little shack there? Because they clearly show that in his little shack when we get to him in The Last Jedi. You don't see that?
I did not realize that.
Go back in and you clearly see there's a red kyber crystal on a necklace hanging in his little shack.
Because you would think of all the things that Kylo Ren would want would be his lightsaber. I mean, the mask is one thing, but I would be like, no, I'm going to use Grandpa's lightsaber to, rule
the bad guys.
Yeah.
Maybe that was it, and he retrofitted it with those two little, things on the side. Same crystal.
We get a little, we have everyone hugging and happy and everything else, and then we get a little scene where Rey lands on Tatooine, back on the Lars homestead, and I love the fact we had that little nod of her grabbing the piece of metal and sliding back down like she did in The Force Awakens, and she goes to bury both of the lightsabers. So she buries the lightsabers, and then she pulls hers out. I have a hard time with color distinction. I could not tell if it was orange or yellow, and
it was yellow.
Looking at it, it was yellow. I'm sure everyone in the fucking expanded universe just lost their shit at that point because they're like, it's now technically 100% canon. Because there's been a lot of debate. We've pretty much only ever seen blue, red, the one purple, and then and green.
The only other yellows we've seen on a screen was in Rebels.
Mm-hmm. So it would have technically been canon, but most people haven't.
Yeah, with the guards, with the temple guards. It's like, very interesting.
Okay. So yeah, and then there's this random person shows up and just asks her what her name is, and she looks over and she sees the Force ghost of Luke and Leia, and she tells them that her name is Skywalker. She's taken the name Skywalker. So. And then
so now there's mixed reports, because just a couple weeks back, I'd seen some stuff, and again, you never know. Who exactly is saying this? But a number of sites reporting, the next release is going to be dated 2023, 3 Christmases away. Now there's more reports that you're seeing that no, in fact, the next trilogy, because they're going to do trilogies of movies. But the next trilogy storyline is going to be released in 2022. I've saw a couple different sites today posting about now a continuing of Rey's story, possibly in the new trilogy. But then again, of course, there's a lot of talk about the Knights of the Old Republic trilogy as well.
That's what I'd really like.
That's what I really like to see. But after the end of this, I'm really okay with seeing a Rey trilogy training a new group of Jedi. I'm totally okay with that now.
I'd be okay with that too.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Keanu Reeves is Revan. Oh yeah.
Yes, I desperately want Keanu Reeves to be Revan. Hell, I'd love to see an independent movie. Of Plagueis and up to his death. I'd love to see that.
Now, didn't the Plagueis book get ruled not canon?
Not canon.
Yeah, I had a hard time getting to that one for some reason though. I don't know. It just did not really hold my.
Just the little bit that they do talk about it in canon, it's not really clear exactly when Palpatine killed him.
Exactly, yeah. It could have been.
You have to imagine it has to be before Episode 1. It has to be before Episode 1 because of the Rule 2 and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Training. But
part of me thinks he killed him a long time ago and just has managed to be young looking for quite a while.
Why do Sith take on apprentices? They always just end up killing them. Like,
Well,
their apprentices end up killing the masters.
In the old, in the non-canon stuff now, it was because during the Knights of the Old Republic, there were Sith Lords everywhere. And the problem with being a bad guy is you're a bad guy to everybody else as well. So it wasn't just them versus the Jedi, it was them versus everyone else. And when it got down to just a few of them, they're like, well, this is the only way we're going to continue is there can only be two. So I'm going to train you, and at some point, you're going to come after me. So if you don't
you
make
would think
it,
they just kind of learn, like.
But they figured out if there's too many Sith at any given time, they're just going to fight each other for power. So I don't know if that stayed canon. I don't think it did, but I remember reading that at one point, and I was like, well, that makes sense.
Okay, just quick recap. Who's even close to caught up on The Mandalorian?
I haven't even started it.
I watched it all.
No.
You watched it all?
Yeah.
This won't spoil anything for you if I just mention where a character's from. Gene, I don't know if you caught where they dropped this the other day. What's her face? I don't remember her first name. The other bounty hunter like lady, Dune.
Yeah.
Did you catch where she's from?
No, I did not.
No.
She's from Alderaan.
Oh, was she?
They mentioned that. They sure did. I was like,
well, see, I'm planning on going back and rewatching it anyway, so I'll have to listen for that next time.
Yeah, they said she's from Alderaan. I'm like, what the hell? This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, time-wise, that would make sense. Because I was just like, how the hell is she from Alderaan? But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so real quick, let's see here. Let's talk about, okay, we said, all of us did enjoy the movie. How do you feel this wrapped up this trilogy?
I thought it was a good closure. I mean,
okay.
It pretty much tackled, almost everything you could possibly, everything I can think of that I didn't get answered was because I'm so involved in, other components of the Star Wars universe,
Right.
That's really where my other questions come from.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with how they wrapped up the story because, like I said, at the end of 7 and 8, I was just like, I have to wait 2 years for more answers. This is bullshit, like I was pissed. But I think obviously there's some big things they didn't address, like how did the Emperor survive? Who was this kid that he had with who, blah, blah, blah. But like, to me, that wasn't what I was, dying to find out. It was more
I'm not
Skywalker
losing
stuff.
sleep trying to figure it out. Exactly. Yeah. So
I thought it ended well. I think they had to kill off Ben Solo in order to get the complete closure. Like leaving Rey alive. Oh, okay, yeah, that's just. But killing off the bloodline completely, I think, was like the final. Okay, we're closing off. No offense to Chewie, but
no.
Yeah. I have a friend who thinks that this one just pandered to the fan base too much, and it was all just giving us what we wanted. And to a certain extent, yeah, but I don't see what's wrong with that either. Like, dear God, you've ripped away, like half of the characters I cared about. Give me some stuff, to work with here.
So if you look at Rotten Tomatoes right now, as it stands, I believe the last time I checked, I think it was yesterday or whatever, the critical review of this movie is at 55%. The fan review is at 86%. So the majority of people are enjoying the movie. And all of the stuff that I saw from the critics was, it's not a bad movie. It's just all about the fans. And I'm just like, duh. This is the third movie in a trilogy wrapping up a 9-movie, whatever you would call it. I'm like, of course it's for the fans. This is not for, Joe Schmo to walk off the street that's never seen Star Wars and go, what's this movie about? That is not what this is. Like,
it's a chapter in a book. Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly what it is. That is the best way to put it, Jen. Like, you would not open up a book, read the final chapter, and then go, well, this sucked. I don't know what was happening in it. No, you are an idiot. Like, if you do that. So I'm like, why would it not be for the fans? So yeah, the whole thing, as soon as I read that in any kind of a description, it was like, well, it was, mainly for the fans. I'm like, oh, duh. Like,
I will say, and this isn't this movie specifically, it's the the latest trilogy. I'm still confused, and maybe this is addressed in some of the extra stuff outside the movies that I don't follow anymore. But what happened between 6 and 7? That, I mean, at the end of 6, they defeated the Empire. They won. Life was great. They're having a party. You know, the resistance or the rebels won, and the next thing you know, like, they're in power, but they're not in power. Like,
that's the whole aftermath.
Mhm.
Aftermath, the three books there.
that are semi-canon.
No, they are
yeah,
canon.
Oh, they
they're
are
all
canon. Okay.
And I'm a slow reader, comprehender, so I have them all bought audiobooks. So
Yeah.
and I
That has nothing to do with
love listening
anything.
to them. Yeah, so
I haven't been following the new books other than Catalyst, so yeah, I'm sure that the information's out there, but I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why are we getting?
So
why are we back?
Yeah,
as
it's
the underdog?
really interesting. There's several really cool characters that are in there. Obviously a lot of tie into Return of the Jedi, but basically, you're left with, okay, at the end of Return of the Jedi, yes, the Death Star is blown up, and it kind of takes over from that point of, okay, well, here's everybody here in the Empire. They're looking, they're like, holy shit, our leader's dead. Both of our leaders are dead. Our ace in the hole is dead, is gone. Our Death Star, and there's all these uprisings, but there's still lots of very powerful admirals and things like that. Who's in charge now? And there's a lot of them arguing about who's in charge, and it's a big power struggle that goes on for a while. And of course, then you start hearing about the cult like following of Darth Vader and this and that and the other, and it's really interesting because, I mean, really, it's titled Aftermath for a reason. It's like, this
Yeah,
is
I need to
total
read it.
friggin' chaos.
Yeah, I might have to get that audiobook.
Well, we might could add that to our to-do list.
It's so worth it. It's really, really good.
How many's in that series?
3.
Three.
Just 3.
3. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure all 3 of you are already into audible.com.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying, because if you're not, I could gift a book to you for free, but I'm sorry, it won't let me do that. Unless you would like to start up another Gmail account, and then I can send it to you for free. Because that's how we roll in Audible.
Yes.
Oh, you can lend us a book from your library?
Yes.
Yeah, I still haven't looked into how to do that yet. So, but that's more for the book show. So.
Yeah, they are really good. So.
Okay. I wanted to bring this up, talking about all of the movies, if you look at them as a whole. Because like I said, leading up to this, and actually I'm going back through them a second time because just by happenstance, my boys sat down and watched The Force Awakens and really enjoyed it. And they've seen some of the other movies. And I made a deal with them. I said, if you will sit down and rewatch all of the movies with me, including the ones that you haven't seen, I'll take you to go see this in the theater. And they agreed. So we're currently going back through, but I've also recently rewatched them all myself. I know it wasn't coherent. We know for a fact George Lucas did not have all the stuff planned out. And of course the later trilogy was not his in any case. But if you look at the plan of the Emperor going all the way through this, it's fucking genius. It is literally, I'm going to create an army, and then I'm going to create an opposing army, and I'll be in control of both of them. And whichever one wins, I'll still be in control of, and it will be battle hardened and basically wipe out the other one. So I'll have all of the control. All along, leading up to what I thought until y'all just told me that it's no longer canon about him creating Anakin, it's like, okay, well then I'm also going to do this. And so I'll have this super powerful ally. But then it's, we find out in this other thing, it's like, okay, well, I'm also going to clone, other beings to act as myself while I build other armies. And then, like I brought up, we build this giant, where there's this build up to this giant weapon. Well, let's build a second one just in case. That didn't work. Let's build an even bigger one. That didn't work. So we're also going to build multiple versions of it. And it's just like, we just re-listening to the Bobaverse books, he pulls quotes from Sun Tzu's Art of War, and one of the quotes from Art of War is, the general that makes many calculations in his temple always defeats the general that makes few. And I'm just like, this is a class example of, you don't put all of your eggs in one basket if you plan on ruling the universe. Like, you have to fucking go every angle you can.
Well, that was always something that struck me when I read the old books, was how many plates he was always spinning. There were always plans inside of plans inside of plans. People didn't know about other people. I mean, he had the Emperor's hand for so many years that Vader didn't even know about, or this person or that. And it's just like mind-boggling that he could not only think of it all, but keep track of it all, and keep these people he was training so intimately separate somehow. Like, it was just, and building armies outside of the known universe. And like when it was revealed that he was the one that got, the war started on Naboo all the way to the clone troopers being made, and it was like genius that he had that foresight to do all that, all the way to the end where he was hanging from a stick.
I think, I mean, granted, I've never been one of those people that disliked the prequel movies. They're not my favorites of them, although I do really like Revenge of the Sith. I just like to see how all that came together. But
it's like the great acting on Mustafar.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like going back and rewatching these movies, especially taking them in a whole with everything else, I think definitely helps those movies a lot when you go, okay, I really see what this plan is and how it's going and everything else. So something else I wanted to bring up looking at these movies is 3 separate trilogies. There's a lot of family in this book or in this series. And what I mean by that is the first trilogy is about the loss of family. It's, Anakin loses his mother. He ends up losing his wife. He doesn't know about his children, but he thinks he's lost his child as well. And, the person he considers to be his brother, Obi-Wan, he turns against him and loses him as well. And basically he's left with no one but the Emperor. So the first trilogy is basically about losing family. The second trilogy is
about... That's what abusers do. They isolate you from your family and cut you off and make you think
Exactly.
One that matters.
That's how they win.
And then the second one is about finding family. It's about finding Luke and finding Leia, and then the building of their little family. It's about finding family. And this last trilogy really hammers home the idea, and this is something that I really like. And don't take any offense to this, Rudy, but it really kind of hammers home the idea that family is more than blood. Family is the people that you choose to be with. And, I choose to be with my brother, so I'm not saying anything about that, but it's just like,
I'm trying to figure out why I'm not supposed to take offense. I'm like, where's the cut?
It's just like, but it's just like, to me, when I think of my family, like all 3 of you, I consider part of my family. I consider the Canadian. I do.
Sorry, Ricky.
I'm trying not to get sappy or anything, but like the Canadians, of course Sean's Canadian too, but like Chris and Ray, they're family. Like, y'all are family to me. When I think of my family, I think of this group of people. And they really hammer that home because he's like, all you have is me. And she's like, and then he specifically tells her, if you want to save your family, the people who are flying up, the people you have no blood relationship to, you've got to, do what I say. And it really kind of hammers that home. And I love that message because I tell people that all the time. I'm like, just because you don't have family here doesn't mean you don't have a family. Like, so anyway, sorry, didn't want to get too sappy on that one. So
speaking of family, it always kind of bothered me that Chewie actually had a family and he just like left them to go hang out with Han. I know he had that life debt, but
he
still,
has a life debt thing. So
it was like, yeah, but you don't miss your kid, and the one time we got to see him in that abomination of a
that doesn't count. That's not
movie
canon.
That's no longer canon. Yeah, but it's like, come on, you left your family. You leave them all the time. You never go back to them. I don't know.
By the way,
he probably does.
Did you ever sit down and watch the Christmas special?
I was tricked into it.
Oh.
A friend told me, yeah, I have it. We'll watch it. It's we'll watch it when we did a marathon, and we'll just it's good. We'll watch it. And then we watched it, and I was like, what the fuck did you get me to watch?
Exactly.
And he was just laughing. Michael Hunter, that was him.
Uh-huh. My partner at work insisted that I watched it last year, and I think gave a copy to my brother. Rudy, did you watch it?
He has not given me the copy.
He did not give you the copy? Okay.
Do it. It's a rite of passage.
It is a rite of passage. You do need to watch it, but you are going to sit there so many times watching it going, what am I watching?
Arthur sings. That's all you need to know.
in the most isolated cantina.
Wow.
Oh, it is.
Oh, it's better. It's
Oh
better.
God, it is. Like, here's the thing. Anyone who tells me, "Oh, this is the worst movie I've ever seen," I'm like, yes, technically it's not a movie. Technically it was a Christmas special, but I'm just like, you've obviously never seen it. Like, fuck, the one that everyone wants to crap on, episode 1, is a masterwork of. It is the greatest movie ever made compared to the holiday special. The holiday special is so bad. Oh, it's so bad.
Bet you can't wait to watch it.
Can't wait.
No, I'm good. I've seen it once. I'm good to go. So let me ask you this. So what are you wanting to see? You kind of mentioned a little bit, Rudy, about some of the ideas that people have had. What would you personally like to see going forward from Star Wars?
All of it.
Oh yes, I'm with you. All of it.
Whatever you're willing to give me, Disney, go
Yes,
for it.
Give me anything. Give me everything. Give me the Ben Solo Disney Plus series. I mean everything. I don't care. Whatever.
You're good.
because
Whatever.
There's a lot of talk about okay, would there be a Ben Solo series as him as a child? That's what I think is the least likely to happen.
That
would
wouldn't
be,
interest me personally.
Now the Kenobi series.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
That's gonna be
love to
good.
see a Kenobi series.
Kenobi, Orlando.
Yeah.
I'd love to see either one of those.
Definitely want to see it. Which one?
Lando.
Oh yeah, Orlando
series.
would be great. Any of those things would be great. A Knights of the Old Republic, I would even be okay. I mean, after seeing Mandalorian now, I would even be okay with it being a Disney Plus series. However, just as amazing as the games are, there's so much you could do with that. And because you're not connected to a Skywalker anymore, it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, you could get away with frigging anything and be completely awesome in any way you want. So I think that would be a huge boost for Star Wars as a whole. I think it'd be a great direction to go in. Because I'm afraid if they go straight with just Rey's trilogy, which I would love to see, you're still going to be really attached to the all the attacking people in the media right now. That you're still
pandering.
Just fan base bullshit. Whatever, and just which I'm still totally okay with, but.
Because you could enjoy The Mandalorian without having seen the rest of Star Wars, right? Like it stands on its own.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's basically it's basically a Western set in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, it enhances it if you've seen the Star Wars. And
that's exactly what I was going to say. The more you know, the more you'll get out of it. But just sitting down and watching it is just a space Western. It's great.
Yeah. The other direction I would love to see them go in is, you guys have got to watch Rebels. I mean, I'm
working my way through it.
Okay? Because in the climax of Rebels, and there's so many tie-ins with. I mean, there's tie-ins with Rogue One. There's tie-ins with this trilogy and things like that. So the huge questions that are unanswered at the end of Rebels is like, you could make a hell of a movie series out of that. And of course, Rebels pulled in a lot of the EU also. In particular, Thrawn. There's no hiding that. Thrawn was part of Rebels, and Thrawn had a huge following for anybody who was,
Oh yeah, the Thrawn trilogy, that book series. I know it's not technically canon anymore. Is fantastic.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, that's another direction I would love to see them go in, at least in part. I think that'd be great. So yeah, I think anything they give me at this point, I'm gonna be thrilled about.
You'd just be like, shut up and take my money.
I want to see the next adventures of R2 and C-3PO. Let's go.
Oh yes. I would love to see a Yoda backstory, origin story.
Yeah.
And in the last, in episode 8, they kind of gave us a teaser that I thought maybe would play into this one that we didn't get to see. Like at the end, that kid that, grabs the broom. So he's obviously force sensitive. And are there others out there in the universe that are finding their powers? That would be kind of cool. I guess that would go into, what, if Rey starts training new Jedi. But, yeah, there's some potential things they could pull from the new stuff too. But so many characters you could make a series of. Oh.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. My thing is like, I know they want to keep doing trilogies and stuff. I wouldn't mind seeing some of the previous wars, like you said, like the old Republic stuff. But going forward, I don't know if it needs to kind of more so mirror. I'd almost like to kind of see like smaller stories, like it's this battle, but it's like just on a planet, or whatever. But seeing these huge, war, because it's just like, we had the Clone War, and then we had the Empire, and now we've had the First and the Last Order, and it's just like, do we really need a giant, overarching supervillain, or do we need to have? Could we maybe focus on smaller battles between different groups or whatever? Just because that's kind of how the world has gone. Like, I mean, it's, yes, we have some superpowers and stuff, but if you talk to most military people, they're like, yeah, these are brush fire wars. Like, this is not a war. And it's like, is that granted, the name of the fucking thing is Star Wars. So it's kind of like you kind of need a war in there somewhere. But you know what I'm saying? Like, to me personally, yes, I'm with y'all. Whatever they want to give me, I'm good with. I want to see where they go with. But I kind of want to see these smaller stories, especially after watching The Mandalorian. Like, there's reference, we do have some Imperial, involvement in it, but for the most part, this is a small story about a Mandalorian and a baby Yoda. I'm sorry, I'm not calling it the child. Fuck y'all. Disney can go jump. Y'all missed that ship a long time ago. Y'all should, anyway, if he had a name, you should have given it to us by now. But anyway, but yeah, that's kind of what I'd like to see in the future is just, I'm in, like y'all, if, they're like, well, yeah, we're definitely going to do a Obi-Wan one. Hell yeah. I'm down. Let's watch it. So anything else anyone want to throw in here? Any last thoughts? Any questions? Things you really thought stood out? You like things you didn't like?
Was it just me, or did they not seem to do the thing where they give you 3 or 4 storylines at once and keep circling back around to them? In this one, it was usually just like one thing, maybe 2 that they jump from, and then that'd be it. I noticed
that too. Yeah, and I actually kind of appreciated that.
I liked that.
Yeah.
It's emotionally exhausting to be like, and then go on to the next one, and you're left hanging on 3 different fronts. It's like. It was nice to just have 1 or 2 things to worry about the whole movie.
Yeah.
The movie was really fast too. The whole
it was.
The whole time that was different. Like doesn't seem to be any slowdown points.
I agree.
Which for a 2.5 hour movie, that was it was a lot. It was hard to run out to go to the bathroom.
It's kind of like Endgame in that everything we thought that would happen over the course of the movie happened in the first 10 minutes, and then you had to like, oh.
Yes.
There's more. Okay. I wasn't ready.
One of the scenes I did really, so this is something else I want to bring up. So, at the very end, the Star Destroyer is going down, and they have to find a way to get Finn off of the ship. And they're like, Poe's like, I'll go get him. And he's like, I don't know if I'm fast enough. And then fucking Lando's like, you're not as fast as this ship. And he just blows by him in the Falcon. I loved seeing that. I thought that was great. When we get back to the planet, we have a small little scene with what did I say her name was? Jonna and Lando. And he asked her a question, and she's like, I don't have anyone. He's like, well, let's find out.
Where are you from? Yeah.
Have y'all read? Do y'all know anything about that? Because I did a little reading on that.
Yep.
Apparently in the expanded universe, Lando had a daughter who was taken by the First Order and was trained, and a lot of people are like, it's fucking Lando's kid. So, because a lot of people I think saw it was like, it's fucking Lando hitting on this young girl. All right, Lando, you go, dude. But it's like, no, I think he thinks, no, you might be my daughter. Let's go find out. So.
Wow.
Yeah. I like that. That would be something interesting to see. If they do something with that. So.
Yeah, boot up the genetic sequencer on DOS.
Yeah.
I honestly, where
fax us the results.
addressing something like that. I see another book series coming out addressing that, who's Finn's parents. That would be awesome to find out.
Yeah.
Also where he came from.
All the kids that were taken. Mm-hmm. That's a whole series there.
Yeah, I could definitely see a book series.
The Lost Generation.
Well.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Eugene, I just sent you a text message.
Do we think Phasma is dead? Because we didn't see her.
I'm pretty sure she's dead.
I
Yeah.
think so.
She
The
went down in a
ship
fiery
blew up.
pit.
Yeah.
Although I've been told in all the other references, like she's a survivor. Like that's her whole thing.
She's
is
Brienne of Tarth.
She's-
Brienne of Tarth.
she is looking out for number one above everybody else. So because I talked to some people and they're like, no, she may still be. If she survived, and she's just like, fuck this, I'm getting off this shit.
Anyone survived. She survived. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I noticed that we didn't see her, so I was like, well, maybe they did kill her off, but who knows? Like, it's fucking Star Wars, shit. It's
Yeah.
almost like it's not as bad as Marvel, but it's getting close where it's like, oh no, they're not really dead.
Nobody's ever really gone.
Exactly. That's right. No one's ever really gone. So, was there anything else anyone wanted to throw out there? Oh, I did want to mention the only thing I was a little sad about was when it came to the music is just that we didn't get that super over dramatic version that we got in the trailer. Otherwise, I thought the music was, because I've already bought the soundtrack. The soundtrack is fucking fantastic.
And it's his last one, right?
I'm pretty sure this is the last one.
John Williams said.
Yeah.
Did you see his cameo?
No.
Yes.
Did you catch him? He's the
Where was
bartender.
The bartender with the one eye.
Oh my God, was that him?
He made a face like, ugh, when they came into the.
Yes. I didn't realize that was him. Oh my God. Well, I'm gonna watch it again. So
There's some great cameos in this one, yeah.
That's fantastic. But yeah, I actually bought the music just for the trailer, just because I love that grand buildup of the main theme. So, but no, the music was fantastic. It was, yeah. So we sat all the way to the end of the movie. We knew there weren't going to be anything after the credits, but it's just like, I'm listening to the fucking score. This is a badass movie. So.
And that's how all those names showed up at the end.
Yeah, well, that too. Like as I was
that
sitting
girl
there, it was going through all the people, and then it listed like Jedi or whatever, and it starts, Hayden Christensen and everything else. And I was just like, oh shit! Like they got them. Like so.
Was Samuel L. Jackson in there?
Yes, he was.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he
it.
was.
You're the fucker in the background.
That's funny. I saw someone post something on Facebook about that. It was like whatever, all the different cameos you didn't read, and it lists what they actually said. And the last one they left was Samuel L. Jackson, and of course they changed it to kill that motherfucker.
I saw someone that posted, I'm sick of these motherfucking Skywalkers.
Yeah.
My motherfucking galaxy.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, I guess that is it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't mention at the top of the show. I mean, granted, it's in the title, it's in everything else. So hopefully, spoiler alert.
Oh, spoiler alert!
Wow.
If you haven't watched the Rise of Skywalker, so let's go ahead and just do a really quick pick our pants, because I know it's getting kind of late. Is anyone watching anything? Done anything recently? I'm just gonna throw out The Mandalorian. It's fucking badass. It was really fun to watch. I mean, yeah, having to wait week to week, but on the other hand, getting to talk to everyone about, what do you think is going to happen, this, that, and the other. I've also started watching them halfway through The Witcher on Netflix. Really good. It's a really good series. So
I just want to see Henry Cavill. I don't know anything about that game, but
it's actually based off of the books.
Okay.
So,
I don't know the books either, but Henry Cavill.
Our friend Will was talking about the fact that he's like, man, he's really dry in this. He's like, but I started playing the games and he's the same way in there. And I'm just like, I think it's how he's playing, because he's a good actor. We've seen him do good stuff, but there's a lot of nudity. There is a lot of blood.
That's what I hear.
It is definitely on par. And the thing is I have not watched all of Game of Thrones, but the people I know who have watched Game of Thrones said, yeah, this thing is like on par with it. And there's only a couple of extra, like there's some main plot lines that are kind of going through, but a lot of the episodes so far are kind of episodic. So it's almost like, oh, hey, now I'm going to go to this town and kill whatever the monster is. And I think that's definitely helped the show, because it's like you got some levity and you've got some other stuff that you don't have to keep up with, unlike Game of Thrones. Not that keeping up with the characters in Game of Thrones works anyway, because they all end up dead anyway. So, But, or do you got a pick or pan or anything you want to throw out there?
I'm just Yeah, I'm going back and watching Rebels again, and I can't get enough of all the other Star Wars stuff. So kind of going back and yeah, highly recommend Rebels. If you didn't ever watch Clone Wars, it is worth your time. Use Disney Plus for all that it is. I'm telling you.
Yep. Jen, anything you want to throw out there?
Just trying to survive the holidays, and eventually I'll finish Game of Thrones so I can move on to something else, because I can only do one show at a time, and that one's taken me months. So until then, I will do the Star Wars stuff after.
Good deal. What about you, Sean? Anything else you wanted to throw out there?
I picked up Orville Season 2 and Discovery Season 2 for Christmas, so can't wait to get it, especially Discovery. For being a tracker and not being able to see while they're actually airing, it's one thing, but not having cable is, it's killing me.
Yeah.
But now I get to binge watch it, but my whole family wants to watch it too, so I can't just sit down and watch it myself.
Jerks.
Like, son of a bitch. So right now I'm watching Lost in Space Season 2.
I haven't started Season 2 yet.
I've started watching it today, and I'm like 4 episodes into it. I was like, holy crap, I can't stop watching this. This is so good.
I loved the first season. The first season was so good, so I'm really looking forward to this.
I do recommend at least watching the last episode of the first season, because I started watching the second one. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? I can't remember, because it was so long ago. So
yeah, that's true. I may have to go back and do that. So, but yeah, I did really enjoy that series. So
yeah, so far Season 2 is really good.
Cool, very cool. Glad to hear that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for our show. If you would, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Music, wherever else you can find us. If there's a rating thing for there, you can find our other shows, Marginally Geeky. We're actually going to be recording an episode here in a couple of weeks, and then we've got a big recording coming up here in about 3 weeks. This is Sustainably Geeky. We've got the newest episode just came out. It was on, wasn't the hydroponics? What was it on? It was the rivers.
Recycling Christmas lights, maybe.
Yeah, it was on water cleanup and Living Lands and Waters.
Yep.
The nonprofit. Yeah, we interviewed their founder.
Yep, that was really good. We finally got episode 2 of Procrastinators out. So if
they've been procrastinating,
we hammered that home. We've been really good about going with the title of that show. So but yeah, so hopefully we'll have some more episodes here coming out, and then we're looking at possibly doing cutting back on this show and doing an additional show where we talk about making and what all kind of goes in with that. So, but we'll have some more information about that hopefully pretty soon. You can find us at Epically Geeky on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and of course epicallygeeky.com. Can we find you anywhere online, Rudy?
A little bit of Twitter here and there, a little bit of Facebook. Anywhere, I'm StevensB29.
Good deal. Jen, where can we find you online?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Het's Gonna Be Me. And of course, this show, Marginally Geeky, when I have time to read, and Sustainably Geeky, the podcast for the everyday environmentalist.
Sean, can we find you online?
You can usually find me on Facebook, or I'm on this show, or Marginally Geeky, and I haven't done the procrastinator one yet because the last game you guys chose sucked balls. So,
it was not good. I honestly still want to sit down and try to play it 2-player to see if that makes a difference, but yeah, that was not a good game.
You guys got to pick some better games.
So, well, I saw that you got a Genesis Mini, so our next game that we're playing is on it, so hopefully you can join us for that one. So
sounds good.
All right, cool. And as always, you can follow my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Gene on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For everyone on the site, have a good night.